Okay, so here is the ranking list. Let me see if I can position it in a way that's good. Cool. Here is perfect. Never change. I screenshot it as a little picture. I feel like people doing it as a spreadsheet makes the most sense. It's very clean, so that we can kind of get a good sense of what's happening, and we'll walk through things accordingly. So what we'll do is we'll zoom in first and kind of walk through what is what. All right, so to start things off, we should probably explain the rating system. So for some people, they decide to just go with like some description of like playable, kind of playable, often played, meta defining. But I wanted to break down what I felt like each number truly could be interpreted as. So the first is that if it's a 9 to 10, we call that the Dr. Boom of the set, where it's just like so strong and potentially define the entire meta that it might break the game and might make it unplayable in a sense that you might see this one card all the time. You might see this one class all the time. You might see this one deck all the time because it's so strong. It might be so strong that it get banned at tournaments unanimously. And then from there, the metagame continues to develop around it. Remember, Dr. Boom meant that Big Game Hunter became crucial to everything. Or Grim Patron meant that you had to have 3 damage AoE, so Pretty started running Excavated Evils all the time. Or, Handlock became pretty strong because it was a counter to Patron. So these are the kind of things that we're talking about. 9 to 10, like, not only is it so good, but it kind of warps everything around it. Because there's also really good cards, like Belcher, which is like at 8, but it's not like single-handedly changing the game. It just gives a lot of good tools. I was thinking about putting Antique Healbot, but I think Belcher's more appropriate because a lot of people might look at Belcher and they think like, yeah, you know what? I think that's the most OP card of the set. But it's not really. They're just being stupid hipsters with large glasses. I put some class examples so you guys can get like a sense of also the power levels relative to the classes, because neutral is very different from class. So Deathspite, for example, is almost unanimously agreed as like one of the strongest class cards to ever be printed in the game. I think Call of the Wild is at that level too, because Call of the Wild has single-handedly given Hunter relevance, but I feel like Deathspite was like a really good example because people like nostalgia. Real quick, Alec, thanks for resubbing. I don't have the sub sounds on right now because I don't want to be interrupted too much on the YouTube video for this. Walking down, rating number 7 is that it's like strong and strong enough to make some people whine about it. It's not like something that's blatantly overpowered, but it's good enough where people are like, oh my god, I hate this card, and it's really strong. I wish that I'd be okay with never seeing it again. Very solid, very powerful, but not like not like the rest of the cards. And I put just a card because people always meme about it, and then Raven Idol because Raven Idol discovers stuff, and everyone always talks about some of these crazy discovers that they get. 5 to 6 is playable, not really flashy, like okay cards. They're not like they're not the ones that really make the deck, but they're serviceable. So Huge Toad, Dark Bomb, very straightforward, simple cards. Give you an idea of their power levels. They're 3/2s that have little benefit. It's like a little bit of removal with flexibility of burst, etc. 4 is maybe if it came from Golden Monkey or Yogg, which is starting to say like it's almost playable, but not really, and it's like kind of good if you get it from those situations. I gave you guys some examples too, like Stand in Day's Darkness on paper doesn't really seem too bad. 5 1/1s, 5/5 for stats, but if it's better if it came off a Yogg, or we're not really putting Hogger in our decks, but Hogger off Golden Monkey, now that's pretty cool. Rating number 3 is like the corner obscure cases. It's definitely weak, but in the right obscure corner case scenario, it can actually be useful. And I gave that award name to Noxious and Crypt because for some reason they're so good at being able to identify like the most crazy use of a card where it actually ends up being good. Tomb Spiders, like Giant Sandworms, like they're able to figure out like all these crazy things. Like the only way that he can win is like Web Spinner into Giant Sandworm with Tundra Run. Like they're the guys who think about these kind of crazy stuff. I was thinking about putting Bloods of the Ancient One, but Blood of the Ancient One is a 1 or a 2. And of course, rating system 1 to 2 is Purify status, with the classic example being Purify, just because we want to continue to meme along with everyone else. As much as I'm trying to bring reason and logic to the crazy amount of jerking that's going on against Blizzard and Purify, I want to join in with it too, because I do believe that card is trash. Now, with that, let's go ahead and start breaking it down. I hope you guys like my rating system, because I want to make it more fun and dynamic. Not just like a 1 to 2, playable, unplayable. Like, I think that's boring. I want this to be flavorful so you guys understand when I say something's a 3, I think it's because it has like a couple of uses in a very few scenarios that it might be okay to play. Hope you guys get it. All right, with that, let's start with the Druid class. Druid is, I think, the big winner of this expansion. Overall, every single card that it has is not only playable, but strong, I think. With Moonglade Portal, the first one, it's not, the Moonglade Portal, if we can just pull it up here on the side, it's not a card that you immediately think, like, this card will be the thing that Druid runs all the time. That's why I put it as a 6. It's not something that will be staple in every single class, but when it's effective, it's very strong. And even when it's not at its maximum potential, like you're not getting the health restoration on a big target like Ancient of War, if you're not getting it on yourself, it's still very solid to just play something. Like, the fact is, a lot of spells in Druid sometimes just don't have use, like a Wild Growth on turn 6 or 7, if you don't have like a ramp target, or you don't want to fill out your curve, or if you have some of these other situational ones like Savage Roar. But Moonglade Portal is always playable because sometimes the 6-man minion, which by the way, a lot of them, and I'm not a Fire Bat type, I don't have like all the statistics of like the percentages of getting this and you know, what's the average stat line? I think it's like a 5-5 average stat line, but he's got the exact numbers on it. But I do know the worst case scenario is a 2-3. It's only 1, the Corrupted Seer. And then the best case scenario, you get some pretty freaking powerful stuff. Upwards to 15, 16 stats worth of things. Generally, it's going to be really good. And I think the best comparison that we can make this is how Shield Maiden went under the radar, partially because Shield Maiden was a 5-5, which was good for the meta. And right now, 6 minion stats are still very good in the meta, and you can restore a lot of health onto big targets. So if you play in a ramp Druid style, you ramp to Ancient of War, you ramp to Dark Arakoa, then you also have Moonglade Portal to follow up on it, and it can give you better tempo while setting up minions. This card is very underrated, I think. People are really writing it off as like, meh, it's like an average card, definitely an arena card, but I think in Constructed it could be cool. Not to mention, its fun level right here is also great because you get to see some really wacky stuff at 6 mana. Not only are you going to see powerful stuff like Sylvanas and Emperor Thorsan, but you also get like Hogger, like we mentioned, or some other really cool wonky stuff that you guys can look up yourselves. Definitely a fun card, and I like it. Let's talk about Menagerie Warden. This card, everyone's already saying it's broken. They're saying that this card is going to just define Druid as the best class, or not best class, but maybe one of the best classes. You put a Stranglethorn Tiger on the board, a 5/5 Stealth Beast, and then you summon a copy of it. How are you supposed to answer that when you're able to use that Tiger to trade, and they have Stealth, so you can't really interact with it? Pretty much only Warrior can answer it, or in some cases like Twisting Nether if you have it as Warlock, or Doom. We're still trying to go along with the memes. I think the card is very, very strong. I put it as a 10 power level because I do agree. And, I mean, there's nothing really too much to say about it. I do think that it's the whole Stranglethorn Tiger thing is like the best case scenario. You're not going to always draw a Tiger on and play it on 5. Like, those are 2 conditions that you meet because you will be playing it, other stuff too besides that. But the fact that Beast Druid becomes more of a viable archetype is pretty cool to me, partially also because of Enchanted Raven. The fun level of Menagerie Warden actually is higher than I think because you can copy some really other fun beasts. Say you do play some other beasts like Emperor Cobra. I don't think that's a viable card, but I'm giving you an example. Like, imagine if you have ability to summon an additional copy of some of these other cooler beasts that have more things than just raw stats. It's going to be cool to see. Because, like, what about Druid of the Fang? People are talking about, like, the Stranglethorn Tiger. But if you play, like, cards like Druid of the Fang, and then it's a 7/7, which is the meme, 7/7, and then you summon another 7/7, like, that's also pretty freaking good, too. So, don't sleep on just the Tiger thing. Like, you can get the Druid of the Fang and a few other really powerful beasts that get, like, those buff stuff. My Exna. Very, very nice meme. And my accent, of course, is that Naxxramas card, I believe. Enchanted Raven's a beast. Very boring. As you can see my ratings. Fun level 2. I was very hesitant to give anything a 1 because if you give something a 1 rating, that just means that it's just like toxic level. Like, you don't really want to see it at all. I gave it a 2 because I just think it's very flat and uninspiring. But I do think it's a very reasonable, strong minion. Not because of the 2/2 stats, but because of what it enables. It means that you have a beast, so you can play Enchanted Raven and you can play Druid of the Fang. If you have Enchanted Raven, you can also use Mark of Yasharaj or Yasharaj. So the fact that it gives you this 1 mana flexible spot where it's like it even has relevance mid game, which is ultimately what Beast Druid will be, because it's a mid-rangey type of deck with overpowering minions and comboing them, and then using like Savage Roar or like charge minions to finish it off. That's what the deck's going to be oriented around, in my opinion. I think it's got a lot of powerful uses. I don't think it's broken though. It's just one of those cards where people would be like, nah, why does he have Enchanted Raven plus combo all the time? Druid, absolutely without doubt, the big winner of this little adventure/expansion. Druid of the Fang is from GVG? Oh, I apologize. And I thought Druid of the Fang was from TGT. Well, I just take that entire thing back then. I misstudied the card then. Whoopsie daisies. I was drafting all of my answers, and I guess I should have done some back research. So just minus it, but you get what I'm trying to say. You get what I'm trying to say. The fact that the beast combos there can be really good, assuming there's another beast activator that I'm not thinking of right now. But it still applies for wild. So there you go. I'm talking. It still applies for wild, very much so, because wild will continue to be a format fleshed out. Sorry, chat. Going to Hunter, Kindly Grandmother, I rate it as an 8 because it's pretty strong. I don't think it's as powerful as everyone's be like, well, it's just gonna make Hunter overpowered. I don't think so, because primarily how bad it trades, it's 2/3s. If you have a single 2/3 also on the board, you can force Hunter to trade into it, and the only way they can usually get good trades is Abusive Sergeant. Even if they had Direwolf Alpha or some other way to buff it, it's just not really that reliable. So as a 3/2. Off the death rattle, it just means you're more resilient to AoE, so things like swipe get a lot worse. So that means Hunter's just improved as a matchup against Druid. And there's a lot of like small things and small nuances about this card that makes it like pretty balanced in my opinion, but very strong. Like definitely on the stronger end of being balanced. I don't think it's very fun though. Like if I'm watching this in tournament, like and the Hunter's playing this, what's the cool thing you get? You get a juggle with it if you play Knife Juggler. You get a kill command activator. You get more reliable Houndmaster with it because the token is a beast. Nah, like it's whatever. It's just more Hunter curving out and more powerful stuff. But it's reliable, and Hunter is really missing a 2-drop that's very reliable. In order to get its early game rolling, we have to play things like Huge Toad, which isn't exactly the greatest. It's as we see, it's just like a playable card. And this is the little bit bad wolf token. Cloaked Huntress is a 3-mana 3/4. Your secrets cost 0. I actually think this card is playable. Some people are saying that it's unplayable. The reason why I think it's playable is because I think if you build your deck around it, like having things cost 0 in the game is just really, really good. Especially if you're able to make spells cost 0, so you can use some way to control the board. And the Hunters do have a lot of secrets coming in now, so you do have a diversity of secrets that can help you address the board situation. Sometimes in the past, like back in vanilla, there's a situation where like the Hunter would have like secrets, but almost every secret is like just kind of bad for like attacking a certain minion. Like it's very predictable based off Snake Trap, Explosive Trap, Freezing Trap. But now Bear Trap comes in the mix, which adds like a second dimension of it, and then now when you're casting a spell on Cat Trick, it's like there's gonna be it's not exactly going to allow them to single-handedly be a strong deck, but I think Secret Hunter might actually be a thing because you get to play a lot of secrets for free. And if you play like cards that help you draw a lot with it, I mean, Hunter's a very strong class if you can just get the board early, and this is a card that helps you get the board early oftentimes. Its stats are also passable. It's a 3-mana 3/4, so it's not bad. So I don't think it's like amazing. I rate it as a 5, but I also think it's very fun because if you see this card, that means he's playing a lot of secrets, which means your opponent that's going to be playing against them is always going to be confused. So you bet that if you see like someone play a Secret Hunter against Life Coach or something, it'll be really fun to watch. It's really entertaining. Cat Trick, of course, by itself, not that really fun. You're going to probably see Cat Trick once in a while from Yogg-Saron being played, and that also might be really funny too. But other than that, I don't really think it's that amazing. Let's go to Mage. Mage, starting with Medee's Valet. As soon as Shrifko saw this card, he kind of turned to me and he was like, "This." Well, after the reveal stream, he kind of turned to me while we were talking about the card. He's like, "Dude, Medee's Valet is my jam," and I can totally see it. If you have a secret already in play, when that's what it means by if you control a secret, not if you're holding your hand. If you have a secret in play, deal 3 damage, which is very powerful on just a 2 mana minion. I think the deal 3 damage is already insane, but the fact that you can fit it for 2 mana and play a minion with it is pretty nuts, especially if you're playing things like Ice Block, because Ice Block is not something that you can trigger for a very long time unless you're punishing your opponent. And even then, usually you're popping Ice Block like turn 5, turn 6 if you're like super aggressive. So that means Medee's Valet in the mid game is going to be very powerful, and that's also something very beautiful too about the card. A card like this, if it was able to activate on turn 2, Mad Scientist and Wild, then this card would just be like way too strong. It gains you so much board control and tempo early on, and its stat line is passable, 2 mana, 2/3. This is the kind of card that a lot of people wish some of those class cards from like Rogue that came out, like Cut Purse was a 2 mana, 2/2. If it was a 2/3, it'd actually be playable, and even maybe too strong of a 2-drop for some Rogue archetypes. They say the same about Mana Wraith or Pint-Sized Summoner. A lot of these like missing 1 or 2 attack, or sorry, one or 2 stat points, depending on where you distribute it on attack or health. Medee's Valet is really strong. And also, I think it's pretty fun because it also just creates this idea that you have to play secrets in Mage, which is just better than when you play like Burn Mage and just burning him, playing cards like Mana Worm, trying to burn him. I like the dynamic of secrets because it causes players to stop and think a little bit. Firelands Portal, this card got a lot of flack for the arena speculation about being common. I do think it's a very strong arena card, but I also think that it's a very playable mage card in Constructed as well, because the fact is you're doing something. Again, that Druid card always summons something, which is a 6 mana minion, pretty strong. There's the range on 5 is actually a lot like more swinging because you can get some really useless stuff for 5 mana. Like you can get Summoning Stone, which your entire turn costed that, and you have a 0 whatever, 0/6 I think. So Firelands Portal can definitely be very swingy with the minion, but it's dealing damage. So if your game plan is just to deal damage, and then you have that 5 cost minion to help you get that extra little bit over the hump, Firelands Portal can be pretty sick. So I think Firelands Portal is very good, and it's very fun. I think, in my opinion, I know the RNG aspect of it might turn some people off because they feel like, all these spells and minions are just summoning random stuff or random things. Not Faceless Summoner, is it Twilight Summoner? The one that's the 6 mana that summons a 3 mana minion, and Firelands Portal. They feel like Mage is just gravitating towards this, which I do agree it's a little bit over the top sometimes, but I think this is okay because it's so expensive. You're going to play this, and it's going to be very rare that you can fit in another significant tempo swing onto the board because it's 7 mana. It costs so much. If you're already at turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, where he can do some stuff and swing the board with like more tempo plays, the game's lasted long enough where you have to have some decisive turns, so I think it's okay. Summoning Stone makes a 7-drop when you get it initially. Did they confirm that? That's sick. If that's the case, Zimmy, then that's amazing. I didn't hear about that interaction. That's cool. If Fireland Portal summons Summoning Stone, that's dope. I take it back then. That's actually a great outcome. Cool. Well, I'm learning things too about this card review too. I'm glad you guys are here with me. Let's go to Babbling Book. Babbling Book is 1 mana, 1/1. I think this card is pretty underrated. I think people feel like it's a useless card. They're like, well, we already have Mana Worm. But when Tempo Mage right now, you're playing a lot of like small things that don't feel nearly as significant because you're just trying to have spell consistency. And having Babbling Book in Arena, it feels like it definitely has more of its place. A lot of people are underrating it for Arena too, because in Arena, you don't always have the ability to. You want to like be able to utilize your hero power effectively with a 1-drop all the time. 1-drops are really important, challenge 2/1s, etc. So it's actually a decent card, but it is like a 1 mana cycle. A lot of people are comparing it to the Rogue, the Swashbuckler, which we'll talk about, but I don't think it's necessarily like as bad as people say. I do think it's borderline playable, which is like 5. I don't think it's that amazing. And the fun level is kind of okay. Like I put it as a 4 only because it just feels like it's just too random. So like when it says a single random spell, your opponent can't play around it, but you might get some fun stuff on the other end. So I rated it not so high because this kind of randomness, while fun for one player to see, it's kind of like one of those things where like a lot of times both players are really disappointed, or really unhappy to play like with it and against it, because you play it, you get a bad spell, so you feel bad, and then your opponent's like really shaking his boots because he's just like, there's so many things that you can play around that you just don't play around anything. So it's one of those really volatile cards, but at the same time it's not too good to play. The reason why I think it's okay as a card that it printed is because if it was like a 2-1 or a 1-3, God forbid, then it's almost like too good not to play, and then you have all this pilot shredder nonsense where it's just like, you can't play around it, so you just have to ignore it. That's not what we want. We want interaction. I wouldn't replace Worm. Nokana asked, would you replace Worm with it? I'd probably just play alongside the Mana Worm. Why not? Like, you can just cut the top end, cut the Twilight Summoner. Again, I'm forgetting the name of that card, so I apologize if it's wrong. You can cut stuff like that and then make it really fast and just play stuff like this, the 1-mana thing, so you can get spells, which oftentimes is pretty reliable. Alright, Nightbane Templar. Actually, let me ask you this. If this was a 1-mana spell that said, and add a random mage spell to your hand, would you play it? Probably. It's hard to say because it's a 1-mana draw card, and in the end, you're a deck that just wants to play spells to get things with Flame Waker and get things with the Nano Worm and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So if it was a 1-mana spell that says, add a random mage spell, it's a 1-mana draw card. It's not bad, and it has a 1/1 attached to it. I think it's like better than people think. So I guess because if it was a 1-mana spell that said that, it's different because Mana Worm and Flame Waker get buffs. But you get what I'm saying. Like, it's a 1-mana draw that adds a random mage card, and then it adds a 1/1 to it, so it's cool. All right, let's go.